Hey folks, project lead for Bird and Command, Luke Hughes. Really looking forward to playing with you guys today. I don't normally get to play that much, but you know, it's releasing after a few years, very small. We're going to have a little fun. We're going to start with a simple scenario for those of you new to the game called Red Beach. I'll get that started while we're talking. That will introduce you to some of the basics of the game, give you some sense of it as an experience. And then after that, we'll play a rather hardcore one, Utweiler, but much more tactical, and we'll get to that later. Now, Bird and Command is a leadership role-playing game. Think of it being like Winners in Band of Brothers, except you're in his boots with the Cotton Balers, a historic regiment. We're advised by their historian John McManus. You actually, this particular scenario, you're a lieutenant. It's from the campaign. Red Beach, 8th November 1942, Morocco. And this is where the Cotton Balers, for the first time, actually go to war in Europe, coming out of boot camp. So this is some stuff because it's a standalone scenario today. I'll just skip it. And here we go, folks.
Finally, on the 5th day, we got the news. I mean, what we'd been waiting to hear. They handed out little guidebooks. I remember the first line. You are to do duty in North Africa as a soldier of the United States.
Oh, we stick as close as we can within reason to the history. Our events that happen to you tend to be drawn from history where we can, especially the history of the Cotton Balers. And so you're going to see what your ancestors did. My father was in World War II, actually, so it's not so distant to me. So this is in Morocco, North Africa. That's where the Americans first landed in Europe in World War II. And off to the races here. Shorebound, 8th November 1942, off the coast of Morocco.
We were green as grass. Thought that just being around shit.
Now, if I'm unmistaken, you will at times hear the voice of our sergeant, who is a Band of Brothers, the guy who played the medic. Right now you're hearing the background noises of the, turn it down a little bit for myself, the landing craft. First thing you'll notice, besides we're going to get some story, is these little weird book icons. Higgins boats would circle round and round until the order came to proceed. The particular image comes from the National Archive film, etc. So, we're weird enough, commit enough to history, to put footnotes in a game, which seems insane, except it's gotten a really good reception, I think, because people like it to be connected and authentic, kind of like Kingdom Come Deliverance does, except we're a little in your face with it in the sense that you can see where you want to connect. We sometimes have events that seem completely unrealistic. Often those are drawn from real history, things you wouldn't believe and seem like Hollywood, but they're true, so that's often when a book note will pop to give you more context. So, 8th of November 1942, off the coast of Morocco. Just imagine, this really happened, and what we encourage people when you're playing a game is not to save scum, not to try to beat the game, but really role play. Who would you have been as a leader? How would you have managed? You may not make all the right decisions, and to live with your mistakes, right? So if somebody gets killed, or even you gets killed, we won't kick you out of the campaign for leader death. We won't kick you out of the campaign for losing missions. And we want you to be immersed and really find out who you are as a leader. You can be revealing to yourself. All right, it's been 4 hours since you loaded up. The men have long since given up being dry, let alone warm. Your platoon hunkers down in the grumbling belly of the landing boat, huddled together in the moonless dark. Sprays of ocean waves surge over the bow. The rumble of the engine pitches upward. The boat enters yet another slow turn, and the agony of that delay spreads across the tense faces of your green troops. The itch to do something is incessant. Now, I'm going to speak as a designer to you, not just as a player, since I thought that might be interesting to you all. So early on, we had a famous writer, William Bernhardt, who's written sort of legal thrillers to the tune of 20 million sales. Check out his books. And he gives a lot of good advice. We have good, strong writers from a choice of game tradition, Paul and Alan. But one of the things he said was be as concrete as you can. So as you'll notice, because it puts you there, you'll notice we have things like sprays of ocean surge over the bow. And you'll notice we try to communicate the smell and so forth. The writing's very important in putting you in the place in a way that just playing a tactical game can't. So, here we go. A dim red light flickers The coxswain, a young man in dark blue dungarees, leans forward at the control deck to inspect a fuel gauge with a filtered flashlight. He taps the glass cover with a worried look on his face. Uh-oh. Then returns his attention to the dark seas. With both hands, he shifts the control wheel to keep the boat steady amid a flotilla of landing craft whose engines are far quieter than your own. All right, so what are my choices? Step beside the coxswain and examine the fuel gauge. Can increase rapport with him. Lean back and let the coxswain work. Small rapport increase for the coxswain, trust +2. The other one, let's see. And stay focused on my men, trust +5. Now, trust is your relationship with your own troops. Well, I want to keep a little eye on what's going on here, so I think I'll strike a little... I'll check out and see what's happening here. I would like to connect to the men, but I also want to know, I feel some responsibility for what's going on this little boat. Wooden little Higgins boat. We step up. The control deck is just 2 paces across. The coxswain notes your gaze. He points at the fuel gauge, shrugs, and then looks back towards the sea. Behind him lie the silhouette of the invasion fleet, black against the starlight sky. White waves surge as other landing boats make a radical turn. Engines deepen their growl in the distance. The coxswain throttles up. The hull shudders under the acceleration, taking you closer to the looming fight. We're just out of boot camp. Probably somewhat seasick from the voyage. Check in with my squad leaders. Trust. See if Private Roberts has held down his Navy chow. Could get a better chance at a lot of trust. Talk with Private Hancock. Morris and Patterson. Probably have a joke ready. Oh, they're fun. Now, you would know these personalities, of course, if you'd done the boot camp. Let's check in with Private Hancock. You locate Hancock at the front of the craft, right at the prow. He's taking in the spectacle like it was a carnival, heedless of the slam of waves and constant spray. But for once, he doesn't talk much. Now, this is hardly a great comparison, but I remember just crossing the channel once in England. It was just very exciting to be on the water and to feel this other world. Again, we could find a little more history, but I know you guys want to find out what's going to happen here. So let's keep on with a real adventure people went through. A rumble, like a freight train, passes overhead. A fountain of water bursts into the night sky. White flashes shatter the darkness of the shore. Shells scream overhead towards the transport you left behind. Private Roberts hastily finishes puking over the side. Yeah, he's now completely done with his breakfast. So you can see we're not just going to make a power trip or romantic story here. We're trying to connect to the real experience, which, let's be honest, was often rather either banal or extremely unpleasant. What is that quote? War is often sheer boredom punctuated with moments of sheer terror. So here, it's not a heroic experience being on the boat. Sergeant Grant leans over to the private and asks loudly above the din, "You all right, Roberts?" And this is probably, this is one of the ships involved. "How could I not be?" Private Robert replies. He tries out a weak smile, clearly more for Grant's benefit than his own. "I'm off that rusty bathtub of a ship, and no one shot me yet." "It's about as good as it gets, Sarge." Not the most ringing endorsement of a soldier's duty, to be sure. Private Hancock again. Private Hancock eases back to Robert's side. "Come up front. The air's better there. Trust me." I think I recall they're friends, so he's trying to take care of Roberts. Grant gives him a nod and withdraws. Sergeant Grant, now we'll hear his voice eventually. He's kind of your key right-hand man. I'd pay a lot of attention to him. Probably a little more experience than you have, or in this case, me. Letting Hancock take Roberts by the shoulder. The 2 privates shuffle forward, one leading the other towards the bow. The engine sputters, dying down to a low rumble. You turn to see the coxswain, heaving the wheel of the helm with all his might. Eyes wide in terror. What are the writers going to do to me? They often are not kind. You lurch to the side as the boat goes into a hard turn away from shore. Sergeant Grant helps you stand back. "What the hell's that swabby doing?" Grant asks as the boat keeps turning. "We gotta get on the beach or else the rest of Nickel Company will be screwed when they try to land." Okay, so we've got a problem here. He's a little scared, looks like. Yeah, eyes wide in terror, not a little. And he's turning his way from shore. Wow. And Grant thinks we've got to get ashore. Shove the coxswain from the helm, take command, brandish my carbine at the Navy man. "Hey, what are we doing?" trust the coxswain to not screw up. Now see here, these choices are not trivial, right? Because you don't have much time. We don't put a literal clock on you, but the game will advance appropriately according to your actions. So the action you choose here is going to use up time in terms of how the fiction works. Shove that coxswain seems a little extreme. Slightly tempted by brandish my carbine because maybe he's chickening out here. Hey, what are we doing? Feels slightly weak. So that's safe. But I think that's my balance here. Going ashore, the coxswain calls back. Going ashore, the coxswain calls back. Then he reaches for throttle and the engine roars back to life. He jerks the wheel over. Oh, something dark beneath the water flashes past on either side. Ahead, another boat capsizes, spilling its human cargo into the sea. You hear Captain Lamb shout out above the din as your boat zips past. Now remember, I'm lieutenant at this stage. The coxswain slows the engine, turns the wheel hard once, twice, and then throttles up once more. A sonorous vibration ripples through the wood beneath your feet. Wonder what the dark thing was. Africa has reefs mostly along its eastward and west southern coasts. Mostly Morocco's a treacherous exception. Close one? What the hell was that? Let him drive or pilot whoever this is. Well, I'd like to know what's going on. A reef. Not on the maps, the coxswain replies and flashes a satisfied smile, even though he doesn't take his gaze from his task. And Madre de Dios, I'm glad it is past. So, I kind of given you all a little spoiler there. Now I know there's some streamers out there who remain unnamed, who felt they'd be manly men and take command, and because they thought he was panicking, and things go pretty badly. I haven't actually tried that route, but that's what I understand. Now there are accounts actually of coxswains panicking and turning from shore, so it's not out of the question. And we try to make our decisions a bird in command. There's no easy right one. You might be right. This one, there probably is a right one, roughly what I did. But sometimes there is no great choice. It's sort of a lesser of two evils. And sometimes it might have been the opposite decision. You have to go with your gut a little bit sometimes. The vibration slowly fades away. He takes a deep breath, clears his throat, and at last looks to you. 100 yards from landing, Lieutenant. What once seemed like a pale line horizon is now a vast expanse of starlit sky, sand. Can you imagine? We will be exposed until we reach the dune? Yeah. We must move fast, move inland, I agree with that, and countless drills were for this moment, so I guess this is my internal dialogue. Well, I'm thinking about the discipline so forth. Countless drills for this moment, but yeah, my action. We must move fast, move inland. The hull shudders beneath you, and this is actually a real picture. This is kind of cool. So, we actually sent an archivist into the National Archives to go to the Cotton Balers. That's the regiment we follow. 7th Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, and got photographs. I'm not sure this one is specifically that, but got photographs from their archives, some never seen before, and they would come. They're black and white originally, but we have a team of volunteers who colorizes, though you can also get it in a more black and white format, if you prefer. They put these things that people took the pictures in the back. U.S. troops made complete success of landing anti-tank batteries and other equipment on French Morocco beaches. Fadala, which is where we're headed. Possible little propaganda there, as you'll see later. It didn't all go quite as swimmingly. Maybe it did with the AT stuff, anti-tank stuff. The coxswain throttles back the engines, and then quiet afterwards he yells, "Debark now!" Makes me think of the Pacific, too. My dad was in the Pacific. "I see sand!" Private Hancock yells from the bow, and then leaps over the side. Okay, that was a little, impetuous. Hancock's very enthusiastic, isn't he? Well, let's get moving. Lead them over the side. Lead or just get him out of there? I feel like, well, this is dangerous, right? I feel like I should lead from the front. That's a good example, builds trust in their hand. If I get shot right away, well, that's not going to be too good for them. But I want to lead here. You leap over the side into frigid, waist-deep water. Your men follow. There's these terrible scenes. In D-Day where they go too far down, they drown. Assembly required. The moment you drop into the surf, the chill of the ocean numbs your toes. The awful stink of gasoline thickens the air as you struggle onto the sand. All around lie wrecked boats and sprawled men. Here's Patterson, and there's Patterson, and this is Morse. This is one big snafu, Patterson grouses as he Crawls forward, belly against the sand. Half the French army's shooting at me. Gee, I think Morris is New York City. I'm somewhat Philadelphian. I don't know if I can pull off a New York accent. Let me try a little bit. Gee. Morris replies as he hugs the beach just a few feet away. Maybe they're tired of your flapping gums already. I think I always revert to Southern. I may not have a voice acting career. Okay. So anyway, we're about to be on the beach here. You blink aside the sting of salt spray and spy a huddled men just a few yards off. Now just try to use your imagination here like the writers are trying to help you. Sergeant Grant is among them, his features etched by flashes of distant gunfire. It's very early in the morning here. Lieutenant, Sergeant Grant calls to you. First and second squads are here. Now I'm a lieutenant in charge of a platoon, which is 3 squads. Each squad about 10 to 12 men. So we do try to model the historic structures you are going to have to be organizing and leading a platoon as a lieutenant. First and second squad are here, but third squad scattered itself good. That's not good. The whole squad is next to useless now. 20-odd men from your platoon. A bare 2 squads of queasy, salt-splashed soldiers. Not enough. Where's the rest of the company? Like Patterson said, snafu. Yes. Let's see. Snafu, by the way. There's going to be plenty of cursing here, so I might as well. Situation normal, all fucked up. I think it came out of World War II. Snafu. Where's the rest of the company? We actually had a slang expert, speaking as developer, a guy who was a special forces in Vietnam, has written books on this, advise us on slang, go over all our pros to make sure it was correct. Where's the rest of the company? Wherever the rest of Nickel Company is, it isn't here. Who is this? This is Corporal Crosley. Corporal Crosley passes his bar. That's basically a semi-automatic sort of, not quite a machine gun, but it's more than a rifle, to his assistant. I wonder, actually, you could argue it's a light machine gun, but I'm getting out of my depth here. Hank will be probably getting pissed at me right now. He's one of the scenario designers for getting it a little wrong. Corporal Crosley passes his bar to his assistant, then recovers a .30 cal. Now that is not, do knows that's like a medium machine gun that dangles over the side of a wrecked boat, adopting into his own personal arsenal of democracy. Oh, very nice. Just like that, you've got machine gun support. Arsenal of Democracy was, of course, a reference FDR and others would refer to America in World War II because we were so productive of weaponry. Ocean waves crash in, drenching your men afresh. You have to get them moving. Off the beach, let's go, go! Oh, I like removing fog of war, which we model, and if you get surprised in this game, it's generally quite bad. In fact, again, speaking, we worked with experts like Dermot Rooney, who is a well-known expert on battlefield psychology, and he wrote a book, Brains and Bullets, now called War Games. And Colonel John Antle is actually the executive producer for Brothers in Arms. I know there are some real fans of that very credible game. And they give me and the team a lot of expert on, mechanics. And one of the ways, according to Dermot's book, that you die is moving in the open and getting surprised. Because, of course, you're up, right? And you don't expect the bullets. And that's when people take casualties. More than when they're crouched down, behind the wall and trying to keep themselves safe. Off the beach, let's go, go! Third squad, first platoon, rally on me. So I could rally this squad, try to get myself in shape. I could remove the fog of war, shout a prepared surrender demand to the French. Well, I don't know what their attitude is. That's interesting, though. Now, see, I like this set. This is a good choice by the writers. I really would like to remove fog of war. Very important. I'd love to get third squad back in place. Also quite important, so I have enough force. Shout a prepared surrender demand. Now that's interesting. The French, this is Vichy. They probably don't want to fight that much. These are all good choices. I don't think there is a wrong choice here. I'd like to have my third squad back, I think. Third squad, first platoon, rally on me. Now, those are all, you don't get everything, right? So you pick one of those, you don't get the other ones. You give a shout and flash hand signals. The men trickle in. A distant machine gun cracks out rounds all the while. Hot lead splinters the wood hull of the nearby boats. In the flare of the distant guns, you catch sight of a figure with an American helmet. A glint of return fire reveals the silver oak leaves. Lieutenant Colonel. Oh, I'm just a lowly lieutenant. Lieutenant! Lieutenant Colonel calls out as he forges his way towards you, brushing aside the chaos around him. And this is a historic figure we're going to learn more about. Colonel, sir, salute. Just stare at him. Well, I want to be respectful. We're not stateside, son, Lieutenant Colonel Moore snaps sharply after you bring your hand up to salute. A salvo shell screams overhead. It might be dark as pitch, but snipers always have good eyes. Oh, that's right, gosh. Yeah, you gotta be careful, because they'd love to kill officers. Now then, I don't recognize you. Who are you with? The metallic rattle of the machine gun fills the air once more. A panicked scream rises, high and raw, before being cut down. Well, that's probably one of my men. I'm with Nickel Company. Oh, I'm with you, sir. Now you can start picking out of your tone, the way you'll speak as a develop your character and kind of dialogue choices you'll get. I'm with Nickel Company, that's straightforward. I'm with you, sir. We're the Pathfinders for 3rd Battalion, direct, 1st Platoon, Nickel Company, 3rd Battalion. Both are tempting, but I think he'd really want to know, he's the colonel. He wants to understand organizationally what's going on. I know the rundown. Lieutenant Colonel Moore replies sharply. I don't seem to be doing a great job here. You may be with the 3rd, but right now you're working for me. Understood? Yes, sir. But Major Cloud said, understood. I think sir would be good right now. Excellent, Lieutenant Colonel Moore replies. Now this is an amazing scene. This is from Fadala Beach. And it's very lucky we chose, after some arguments in the High Command, to land in North Africa than Europe, because obviously it was a bit of a snafu, or maybe quite a bit of a snafu. These are our landing craft, and the French resistance was not incredibly strong. So that shows you how ill-prepared we were, in a way that we weren't later at, say, Normandy. So the Germans would have made, I think, short work of us if we'd landed early in, late 42 like it is. But there were aggressive American generals who wanted to do that. Excellent, Lieutenant Colonel Moore replies. Right now I need you to lead these men forward as if I were dangling captain's bars in front of yours. Afterwards, if you... The crack crack, a machine gun fire drowns out whatever the Lieutenant Colonel was going to say next. He stabs a finger towards the flashes on a rise that overlooks the beach. Go get that son of a bitch before he stitches up any more of our men, because he's gotten somebody, as we heard. That's definitely in order. Now this is something design-wise we're pretty proud of. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the burden of command was. And after a while, because it's a nice phrase, what does it really mean? We decided that the essence of it was men, this constant tension between men, your responsibility to their lives. I mean, they'd like to go home, right? They're citizen soldiers, as would you. And the mission, which of course you must try to satisfy. Now this isn't simple, right? Gung-ho, we're always going to do the mission. Think of Captain Winters in Band of Brothers at the canal. He made a decision at one point to, not beat around the bush, to lie about he was ordered to a second time do a scouting mission late war when he'd already done it once, and he just figured he'd get more men killed, and while he was a totally upstanding soldier, in that case he decided it was better to, is it white lie? I don't know what you call it, but he said he'd done it when he hadn't to save the men that late in the war. Tricky decision. But even Winters, who was always getting the mission done, sometimes he put the men first. The mission. So, and the other thing, I'll say one more design thing before we plunge in, is it's very hard with you guys, and myself included, as gamers, to get you to not just take that hill, because almost every game teaches you must win. I remember playing Panzer General, now called Panzer Corps early on, man. If you blew one mission, you were out of the campaign. So of course you save scummed and you min-maxed and you worked incredibly hard to not fail. But we want you to make decisions that real soldiers made. And we had a lot of input from vets, and they said, real commanders withdraw sometime. Now we don't have that. I don't think that's going to be a great option on the beach. But sometimes you should withdraw. Sometimes you should prioritize the men. And so we try to give you a way to win in the game that may not always be both, right? So maybe you don't succeed in the mission, but you succeed in the men. In this case, I think we've got to take the machine gun. We ain't getting back in the boats too easily. But in some of the scenarios, that will be quite important. But unnatural for gamers. Okay, so here we are. Now you can see our troops. I kind of like having the bases off, honestly, because it makes me feel like I'm more there. And let's introduce you to the game. I'm going to go with this as people who are not familiar with the game. These are squads. Remember, I'm in charge of 3 squads. This is me. And you can customize your face and name, but let's not bother with that right now. And over here, you can see my platoon. So being to the right with the white means they're selected. You can see that they're both selected. I'm with this squad. This is first squad, first platoon. That's second squad, you might imagine, and third squad. You can also see maybe the little dashed white line. That tells you they're members of your squad. Sorry, your platoon. So basically, here's my platoon laid out, and I like my position right here in the center. And I recall I rallied my squad. So all of them are pretty good shape. If you haven't done that, because I've seen this played, actually I played with my family recently, if you say pick Fog of War, then you would have gotten, this guy would be yellow, not very useful. Oh, and look over here. Let's do bases just to make it clear for a moment. Somebody's over here. Seems to be some kind of infantry squad. And here's the objective. And it's up on a hill. What do these orange things mean? They mean enemy fire. So I guess it's these guys. We'll get you if you go there. And let me just not select for a moment. So, and here's a building. And your attention. What are the green dots? Are the orders. Think of them as like action points in XCOM, which certainly was an influence for us as a clean, simple design for tactical play. So your orders are 4. You use these orders to do obvious things like move and shoot. So you're not the most important thing to shoot, but most importantly as a leader is to command and control your organization. You've got 3 squads. You've got 4 orders. Every squad takes an order. So you got like 1 order to spare, or you put extra effort in with one particular squad. And there are lots of clever and subtle ways to play, but let's start simple. Now I got to think tactically for a moment. Objective. I've got to go up a hill. I'm in the open, which is really bad. I could take this first squad and I could creep. Well, I'm not being allowed to creep. Oh, I can creep. Yes, I am. Okay, creep is basically safely move forward 1 hex. That's tempting. I could shoot at these guys. Now I want to teach the 4 Fs. Key we're trying to teach in this game is not bang, 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 you're dead, which most games teach. In fact, almost every game known to man, right? If you just shoot enough at it, dies. Even some tactical board games that some of our community plays tends to be fire a lot at it, the squad breaks, turns over, and you shoot it again, it dies. And of course, XCOM, or think about it. I challenge you to think of many games where repeatedly shooting doesn't work, but in the real war, it was 40,000 bullets before somebody was merely casualties, means wounded. 40,000 bullets before wounding. So these numbers are a little tricky. Some estimate up, some estimate low. But it's because, look, if you were shot at, what would you do? You'd get down behind the wall or any other obstruction to give you cover. In Battle of Fredericksburg in the Civil War, Union got trapped on the hill, but they survived for quite a long time because they all just lay hugging the ground. There's a lot of terrain in the ground when you hug it that can make you safe. So it's not easy in World War II or in this game to kill people by shooting because they'll go to ground, protect themselves. So you're going to usually have to close and assault them. That is, find them, fix them, flank them, and finish them. So let's make that concrete. These guys are not suppressed, so maybe we should shoot at them first. And now I'm thinking about, that machine gun. And there it is, right with more. There's Lieutenant, actually, by the way. And interesting, looks like he can command our troops too. That's pretty handy. And he's probably good quality. So, actually, that's funny. I guess he's green too. I don't see any stars of experience on him. So we're all green. Let's start with that. So, here's probably the most important command in the game. And then we're going to start playing here tactically. Bolster. Bolster means, pump them up, guide them, direct the fire, get them moving, have them focus. Sometimes it's just like you want to be firing at that group, not over here. Guide the men. You can see that again in Band of Brothers. You'll remember that winners early on D-Day running down the trench, telling them, keep up the fire, what to do, etc. Same here. So let's bolster. Actually, let me see if I can do a combat projection. So down below, we have an enemy. We can't project how well we do because we don't know what this guy is yet. Let's fire at him, but let's bolster first. And I'll talk more about the mechanics in a moment because it's not as clear yet until we've done a first fight. So, I'm an idiot. I bolstered, and there's no yellow around it. I don't play as much as I should these days. So, he's not actually in range. But wait, I have a machine gun. I don't think I would be in range. Huh. Oh, I can. No, I am. That could be a little bug. Why didn't I get yellow around that? I can fire. The machine gun should be in range, and I am. So let me fire. Ah, surprise him. That's good. Suppression. They're taking some suppression. We don't know how much. And so... and there's a real squad there now. And they're red. Now, when they go red, that means they are basically cowering. They are as dug down into the sand as they possibly can, or the rocks there. Got a little cover. And they're not going to be much of a threat. So that's quite good. I could keep firing them. But remember, these guys don't want to be hit. So you're wasting your time, to be frank. That's very hard, we found, for players to learn. Which is they just want to keep shooting at them. But it's not going to be effective. Artillery might be a bit of an exception, but we don't have any here. So firing, I think we've got them where we need. So now I'm thinking advance. So let's do that. Yeah, they could fire me, but it won't be too bad because they're keeping their heads down. So I could move up. Let's get me in charge here. I'm going to run over and support the men. Let's see, should I? Oh yeah, I've got what? So let me select again. It's just me, and I'm going to help these men move forward. So let me join them first. Okay, I made a mistake. They took a shot at me. You just saw these guys appear. Not too bad, it looks like. Nobody's particularly affected. So we're okay. Let me bolster them, because bolster will improve... Ooh, wait, I'm being a moron. This says I'll win the fight right now. Remember, the Vichy really didn't want to fight, so this can be fairly easy pushover, to be honest. You wouldn't find that with Germans, or if you get surprised by the Vichy, it can still be bad. But in this case, I've got them flanked. Well, that's very generous of scenario designers to set them that way. Hank, I'm a little surprised you've them facing this way. Is that really intended? Maybe you're being kind. So, let's do the same drill. Bolster them. Just to be safe about it. Now, each bolster is using up an order. You can see I have 2 orders left on me. I've used 1 to move over, 1 to fire. I'm starting to run out of orders. If I keep doing clever things, I may not be able to move the men forward. As a game designer, I'm always trying to put you in a position where you don't have enough orders for all the things you might want to do. Because Sid Meier says interesting decisions are what a game's about. And from my background, animals like us, humans, are very interested anytime they have limited resources, how to spend them. Right? So how are you going to spend your options here? In this case, I'm going to use it to beat up these guys.
Light 'em up.
Line them up. Okay, that's looking good. They're more revealed. Yeah, it's a French machine gun. And over there, spent. They've fired back. Or they've just been... No, they're so beat up. They have no commands left. That's great. Okay, so now, let's get a move on. I've got 1 order left. I'm going to bolster again because that'll increase my movement.
Come on.
Here we go. God, I used up my last order. Now the men just have to go by themselves. I didn't act... I think I just screwed up on how I used my orders. Yeah, I bolstered, and I didn't leave an order for myself to activate these guys. Now you can see my problem. I'm sort of eager to entertain you guys, to show the game, so I'm not concentrating and thinking about my moves. Some of the streamers are probably laughing at me if they've been playing us with the team. So I got these guys all pumped up, but I didn't leave myself an order to command and activate the unit to go. Well, I've still got the Lieutenant Colonel left, and since he's a Colonel, he can work during my turn to get things going. So maybe I can get this guy going. What an idiot. Now I'm going to be a little more careful about the orders. Oh, okay, good. Now I can show you one more thing. You see me here? I'm in charge of this round. We go in leader rounds because we're trying to reflect the organization of the platoons. So you can't do everything at once, right? And the enemy gets a vote. I want to do everything. I want to move all my units. But the Vichy would like to do things too. So we kind of capture that by you can do 1 platoon at a time. There are some tricks around that, but let's start simple here. Actually, no, I'll show you the trick. So you can use a higher level commander who is not normally in charge of this unit in the way I am as the lieutenant to do a take command. So I can use one of his orders to activate this unit. Now it's activated, and now it can move forward. Let's just get going here. I feel like I want to get up there. And they're not too dangerous, I'm hoping. Here we go. Watch for snipers, yeah. Okay, I've got 1 more action. Rifles are your maneuver and fire element. What I'd like to do is assault. Nope, I can't get that far. Damn. Alright, let's, Okay, honestly, I should put a leader with him. I'm glad I'm screwing up, because I'll teach you guys. So that he could get further with a bolster, but I didn't. So, boy, this is semi-suicide. I don't have enough movement points to get into the building. I'm coming up right next to them. I think my family played better when I was watching than I am today. Well, at least I can get in some cover there. This is bad now. Okay, here we go. They could have actually ignored my demand for them to move forward under fire. There's something called a morale check, that when you do dangerous things like move under fire, you can sometimes not do it. But luckily, it didn't happen here, and they're spent. So I have very cleverly here got my unit right next to the enemy and not done anything effective. I might be relieved of duty soon if the colonel's watching me closely, and that kind of uses me up. I could do a take command. I burn all my troops here. What should I do? Okay, maybe the colonel can come forward. Okay, let's have him. Let me just move him. I'm gonna run out of order soon. Alright, follow me. At least I can get a little more organized here. Now, I'm not gonna make the same mistake. Look at my orders. Green dots, right? If I were to bolster here, I'd be unable to command. So much as I'd like to bolster, because that would probably add 2 more hexes of movement, I'm not going to. I'm just gonna end up in the sand here. I played quite poorly, I must say. Okay. This game, happened what I just talked about. They failed the morale check and they didn't move because, you know, they're afraid they'll get whacked. They're just hugging the beach, which certainly happened on the beach. D-Day, you had the men hugging the beach under German machine gun fire until some leaders rallied them. I didn't bolster them. You notice I'm making mistakes. I'm not bolstering, or I'm using up too many orders. You really have to be careful on how you play. You can't just like run around, which is essentially what I did. Okay, I'm not too pleased with myself, but I haven't lost men yet. But I must say this is a pretty sad start. And look how spread out my platoon is. I was going to show the team how to play. Okay, 4 turns left. So every game turn, the Vichy's didn't want to do much, thank God. I'm surprised the leader didn't try to rally them there. Maybe he was too shot. Oh yeah, he was spent. He had no orders left. That's why he didn't. They will, right? The AI will sit there and say, oh, let me get my men back together. But luckily I had beat him up so much at gunfire, I might get away with my pathetic play here. Now they're both red. So that means they're not very dangerous. And I've got these guys ready to assault, but they might chicken out at the last moment. I see they have 1 star of assault experience, so they're decent. Each star of experience means you're more likely to pass morale checks, fight better, etc. But this time I'm going to try to do a leadership game. I'm going to move up to join them. So I won't reach it unless I bolster. I'm going to bolster myself, and I might as well bolster this unit. Let's see, already bolstered. Okay, well, I'll just... Never mind. Okay, that was another screw up. I know what I'll do. I can just bolster myself, hopefully. Never mind. Okay, this is sad. Well, I might as well take the squad with me now. Of course, that's going to use another order. I gotta think. And now you can see that took a shot at me. Not very effective. Okay, it doesn't seem like they're firing on water. That's very odd. The fire was probably in front of them, but they were shooting my direction. I remember, yeah, we did try to make it easier for you guys by pointing the machine gun slightly odd direction. And they're pretty suppressed, so they're not changing. So we are giving you little breaks at the beginning here. Okay, now, I am with this squad, actually. I'm thinking of a different order. I could have them assault here, but they've only got 1 order left. I bolster them. I think that only takes an order from me. So I think I could pull this off. And the red's showing me that I could assault if I do this. So red is yellow's for shooting, red's for assault. So I'm going to bolster them. Yes, it didn't take the squad's order. So I've got 1 order left for these guys. I'm going to order an assault. Yes. Okay, here we go. And I bolster them, so they'll probably pass their morale check, which is the hardest one they could have to get there. The yellow and black there is not showing the chance they won't. A little tricky here. I've got green men. Oh boy. They failed the morale check. They're like, yeah, that'd be great to charge them. We'd really like to do that. I've got 1 more order to bolster. They're activated. I think I won't be able to move me, but I'll be able to move them, I believe.
No speeches today.
Okay, come on, guys. Come on, we can do this. Don't let me down. I'm embarrassed now. Maybe I should do a re-recording. Wow. Okay. Okay. Colonel's like, you're relieved after this. Let's take command. Let's do an assault. Let's get that machine gun out. Hopefully I'll pass my morale check.
They're waiting.
Wow. That's today. Okay. One more try. See, I don't have a lead directly with them, so I can't bolster them.
Shit.
Wow. Now this, I'll make a virtue out of my failures. This is an example of how to not run a platoon. So now I'm going to be less judgmental to others. I haven't kept the leaders in the right place. I haven't brought my troops all together. I'm making a mess of things. The colonel's going to have to run up here. Let's bring the men up. Bolster first to get myself moving.
Stay online.
Okay. Oops, I picked assault there, idiot. Bolster.
Go, go.
And you can see I'll be able to move a little further. Here, we're bolstered. Here we go. Okay. Thank gosh these guys are suppressed. Otherwise, I'd just be being cut down in the open like this. Form up on me. I gotta get somebody here. Oh, and I put the battalion commander in danger. I am so brilliant. I've got 3 orders left. Alright, somebody send me some good luck. I need some good luck here. Bolster. Alright. Now, am I in range for an assault? Yes. Yes, with the colonel. Colonel has to pick up my slack. Man, I'm going to be in the ranks after this. Come on. Come on. Yes! Yes, I'm going. They gain some experience. They're going to risk it. They listen to the colonel more than the incompetent lieutenant. Good. Good. Thank you. I'm glad the colonel is here. I'm embarrassed, too. And everybody's spent. And another pathetic round of only accomplishing a little. I think my family got it in the first turn, roughly. Maybe second turn. My 16-year-old's probably rolling his eyes if he watches this later. Okay. Now the Vichy didn't do anything because they're pretty suppressed again. The Vichy are going to be pretty inadequate. I'm surprised he didn't rally there, though. Okay. Now. Oh, it's a new turn. Okay. I'd like to do something here before the colonel relieves me. I'm going to come up. I'm going to bolster these guys. This is a drill for the 4Fs. Right? And I'm going to assault now. Please, please pass here. I'm getting really starting to be pretty humiliated.
Come on.
Oh, my God. My gosh. First assault. With a primal cry, you and your men rush towards the enemy. And you can see how the interactive fiction is tied into what's happening. They're not two separate things. The script engine knows what's happening on the battlefield, what events are happening, where the units are, things like people getting hurt, where leaders go. And so it gives the writers and scenario designers a lot of flexibility to interweave choices you make in the fiction of what happens on the battlefield. Like that first choice where I rallied a squad rather than fog of war. With a primal cry, you and your men rush towards the enemy. Rifle fire flashes in the dark. The sputter of their machine gun abruptly ceases with a telltale clank. Jammed. Can you imagine how panicked those French would be? As you crest the firing pit, you find yourself face to face. Now, these are Vichy, in case you didn't know. So the French were actually in their sort of a satellite. They'd made a peace treaty with the Germans to keep some of their country, and so their colonies, like Morocco, were Vichy, and they were technically allies of the Germans. So that's why we're fighting them. We're hoping we'll persuade them to stop, right? The French didn't like the Germans at all, as you can imagine. And there were free French that we're going to recruit. And of course, there was some French resistance in France. But the Vichy are sort of half-heartedly doing their job here, as they've been ordered. As you crest the firing pit, you find yourself face to face with a pair of French soldiers beside their machine gun, one dark and one pale. The nearest man bangs hastily in the receiver with a hammer, while the other strains to shift the stuck bolt. Your squad falls upon them, shooting, kicking, and screaming. This is first combat. Think of it for yourself. One of them manages his last scream. The other goes down right after. The gun pit is captured. Now, I've restored a little trust with my men after my flailing around, because I did succeed here and took out the machine gun, which is probably the first thing I should have pulled off. Trust +4. All right. In the end, we'll pass over some of the mistakes made. The men, major victory. They didn't take any extra casualties. Probably that first one we heard the scream. The mission, major victory. Swiftly captured. Okay, I'm feeling a little better about myself as opposed to completely incompetent. All right, let's finish the story here for you guys. Could take a break.
Off Casablanca stood the convoy from America. To the troops aboard spoke their commander, General Patton.
Soldiers and sailors, it is not known whether the French African army will contest our landing. But all resistance, by whomever offered, must be destroyed. However, when any of the French soldiers seek to surrender, you will accept it and treat them with the respect due a brave opponent and future ally. Remember, the French are not Nazis or Japs.
That's making me think I should have yelled for them to surrender early on. So, again, we are connecting to the real history here, not making things up. You can see how they were thinking about it. A flash of distant shells. Boat after boat crashes on the shore. Remember that ruined scene I saw? Mission, major victory. Yep, major victory. Good. And the sooner you do things, the better, right? I was rewarded for the speed with which I did it. First victory. The men stagger and collapse with relief near the broken, empty machine gun. Cigarettes are lit by shaking hands, I bet. Sergeant, probably just from the adrenaline, if nothing else. Sergeant Grant immediately shouts at them to snuff the flame. Of course, like my stupid salute move. You order pickets set to warn against any counterattack, while Grant supervised, oh, thank God we've got Grant, while Grant supervised an inspection of salt-encrusted equipment and plenty of minor wounds. In the distance, artillery continues to thunder, both incoming and outgoing. The war continues, but right here, right now, you have won your first victory. And this is now John McManus's quote from his book. Now, his book is coming out in reprint end of April. American Courage, American Carnage. Covers the cotton balers, which we are too, which was the longest in the most American wars of any, still active today, of any American regiment. And his book is kind of our Bible. And for you, arguably the cheat sheet. But I strongly encourage you, get the book. But then don't read in advance, read after. So you can see what they decided versus what you decided. Right? Connect, be there in the history. Where the hell is Roberts anyway? Private Patterson asked between shaky drags and a smoldering cigarette. You're about to enter a crucible. Mindsets chart your development as a leader. Now remember, this is a leadership role-playing game. It is not, XCOM. It is not a war game. It is we are always thinking. You notice how much time I had to spend in managing my orders as a leader. I was the fulcrum, for a poor one, of commanding that battlefield. I'm the guy making the decisions off the battlefield, because those are also very important. And then we have these mindsets, which you'll be able to look at in a different context I can show you. But there's like zeal, which think of Lieutenant Spears. Those of you recognize the guy who ran across the battlefield in Band of Brothers like a maniac and then ran back across while the Germans stared at him in disbelief. Caution, empathy, compassion, etc. So we'll get into that more. But just know that sort of like, what's it called? The thought cabinet in Disco Elysium. You will shape your personality. And as you pick a certain focus like zeal, guess what? You won't be able to do so much caution. Pick caution, not so much zeal. If you try to, you can pick those choices, but it'll stress your character, which is a whole nother topic. You're about to enter a crucible. Mindsets chart your development as a leader. You may add additional mindsets as your perspective on how to accomplish tasks increase, as you define yourself in the crucible of war. Mindsets also influence gameplay, both on and off the battlefield. So these mindsets aren't just nice narratively. Like caution, caution might give you scouting abilities. Zeal, you might guess, would improve your assaults. Idealism might make you do grandstanding, where you inspire everyone by dangerous actions, which is of course dangerous, but you get basically special perks and actions based on the skill tree, in a sense, we're picking here. Though there's not really a tree in this one, but there's sort of an advancement to a set of mindsets. Mindsets also influence gameplay both on and off the battlefield. The crucible occurs whenever traumatic events unfold and represents the internal struggle soldiers undertake in order to come to grips with the impact of war. There's no single answer to this riddle. Choose thoughtfully. Smoke drifts past and brings a scent of burnt cordite. The enemy's rough gun pit is littered with the detritus of battle, spent casings, discarded clips, and a crumpled figure in olive drab at the edge. A low moan rises up as you and Sergeant Grant hurry over to the fallen soldier. A flash of distant artillery strips away the darkness. Oh boy, to reveal an American private, splinters of his shattered rifle beside him. From the looks of it, he's been here longer than your platoon. He clutches at his chest, blood seeping beneath his fingers. Oh God. The wounded soldier wheezes out plaintively, gulping down a ragged breath. Now, one of the things we wanted to, as a team, and the vets wanted us to, was try to convey not the power trip of war, which so many games do. Well, I'm not saying it's not fun, but running around the beach in a first-person shooter, slaughtering everybody, and if you die, you immediately reappear after 20 seconds and keep on, just crushing everybody. This is not Rambo. Rambo's got killed in a war, often. So, and people didn't deserve to die, died. And so, the soldier may have done nothing, and yet here he is lying, dying, presumably, or at least badly wounded. And how are you going to handle this spiritual situation? Let me digress on that for a moment. Book that influenced us was What It's Like to Go to War by Carl Melentes. He was a remarkable individual. He's a novelist on Vietnam, but this is nonfiction. He was a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, and so the lap of privilege as an American, and he resigned to go serve as a lieutenant in Vietnam. Can you imagine? Not too many people did that, I think. And then he wrote about it. One of the things he said is, when you go to war, it is spiritual. What does he mean by that? Like it's heaven? And he said, no, he didn't mean it's heaven. It might be hell. But you are entering the temple of Mars, as he called it. Because what could be more spiritual than death? Decisions around death. So we're entering that kind of crucible. In fact, we called this section the Temple of Mars internally to remind ourselves one of the narrative and spiritual points of the experience was. Remember, spiritual isn't goody-goody or bad. I mean, war, in my opinion, brings out both the worst and the best in people. Okay. Band of Brothers, and then Terrible Acts, which we all know about. Okay, so what are you going to do here? You're in this moment. Sergeant, look after him. See what he can, which is a reasonable decision, right? Because you have responsibility, the men are not down. See what we can do. Risk my men to try and find a medic. Now, there's a burden of command decision, right? You're risking men's lives. Should you here? It's humane, but what will the men think of it? The less involved I am with this, the better. Well, that's pretty cool. Let's see what we can do. You kneel beside... Maybe I should have gone to the medic. You kneel beside... But getting somebody killed? What if I had 2 people on the beach dying now because of me? You kneel beside the wounded soldier, the sand shifting. Remember I told you about the riders? That details to put you there. The sand shifting beneath your knee. Sergeant Grant does the same. The wounded man's eyes peer towards you. LT? His voice is wet and croaking, but it's one you've heard many times before. Hancock, Grant blurts out. Well, that's a guy who was so... he just engaged in life. He was at the prow of the ship, just being alive. And you blink hard. Beneath the blood and sand, it is Hancock. Don't move, Hancock. Where'd you get hit? Apply pressure to Hancock's wound. What am I doing? I'm not a medic. I think I know enough that pressure would probably be a good idea. You place your hands atop the wound. I think that's a real photo. The blood is warm and sticky as it covers your skin, slowly pumping out of Hancock's chest. The blood won't stop. Sergeant Grant shifts toward Hancock's bloody dog tags. Shifts Hancock's bloody dog tags aside to give you a better angle. Private Hancock shudders. His clammy skin is deathly pale. So cold, he says in a whisper. He tugs out a slender book from a pocket. The page is damp with salt. How bad? Grant shakes his head. Now this is a decision I think is very powerful. Are you going to tell him basically he's dying? Or lie? Moral arguments for both in this case, but I'm a big believer in truth and even at a cost, so that's what I would do as a leader. Remember, role play. Don't min-max, don't look for the +2. Who would you be? Oh, Hancock says ever so softly. His hand falters. Oh, Hancock says ever so softly. His hand falters. The book falls onto the sand. Hancock? We'll keep fighting your fight. Who do I write to? My God, what do I say? I feel like at this point, who do I write to? Hancock convulses beneath your hands. His breathing rises and gasps and falls in weak, limp coughs. Then it stops. The men watch from cover as Sergeant Grant reaches out and lifts the thin paperback back from where it fell atop the sand. The red badge of courage, Grant reads softly from the tattered cover as a star shell arcs overhead. Remember, this is 1942. Civil War's not that far away. When my dad was growing up, he would see Civil War vets. That's how recent it is on the porch in the retirement homes. He then tries to figure out how to tuck it back into the deceased pocket without forcing the issue. My father gave me a copy before I joined up. Guess I wasn't the only one. As an interesting side, again, there's a wonderful book, What It's Like to Go to... No, I'm sorry. The World of War. I think that's it. And what was it like as an experience? And in World War One, soldiers viewed it from the main prism. They had the Bible. They would use metaphors from the Bible to understand it. But by World War II, it was the movies, right? So they would expect the beach and combat to be like the movies, which of course it often wasn't. And in modern times now, soldiers often view it through, the prism of games, game over, etc. So, but again, games can be a very strong distortion. We hope, in our case, not too much of what the experience is like. By the way, we have a few people who are like going to boot camp, who asked for. I gave one guy an early key. He said he's going to miss it by one day. He really wanted to play. He's about to go to boot camp. I thought, wow, that's an honor. So I gave him the key. He then tries to figure out how to tuck it back into the deceased pocket without forcing it. Yes, okay, we got that. Click anywhere. So my point is, one way to understand it was the Red Badge of Courage from the 19th century. That was a Civil War book. A bookmark falls from the pages, a black and white photograph of a high school football team with a dozen young men looking towards the camera with conviction. Hancock is one of them. Well, he's not going to fulfill those ambitions, is he? And I'm father of 4. So this... If I stop and really think about this, it does hit pretty hard if I imagine it. And that's what we're asking of you, to try to engage with the realities. In a sense, for respect for them. You did everything you could, and he's still dead. The men are silent, reverent as they look to the sky, down at the sand. Remember Carl Malente's spiritual? Or off into the distance. They, too, are trying to make sense of it all. Combat fatigue, very interesting topic. Your soldiers are going to get stressed over time, so wear and tear psychologically. All kinds of things happen, but I don't want to wear out my welcome here. Realism +1, trust +15. Grant's hands shake as he passes over one of the dog tags. The other returns to the body. Your fingers brush aside sand and grit as you grasp the metal square. The edges, sticky with blood. The Army summary of Hancock's life lies in your hand. That isn't a responsibility, isn't it? Along with the name of his next of kin, Helen Hancock, 107 North 27th Street, Lincoln, Nebraska. It's just reality, not high drama superheroes. Boys' lives who are over for their mothers and for them. Probably his mother. She'll be getting a terrible telegram. There's a reason soldiers fight in units. Sadly, Hancock understood that lesson. Too late. Oh, right, he jumped out eagerly. He was gung-ho. Remember? Heroic. And yet, war doesn't necessarily reward simple-minded heroism. That's true. That's true. He probably made a bad decision. Well, he did make a bad decision there. So we're not going to be nice about it. I respect what he did there, but he did make a mistake. Understandably and admirably. Once you have the dog tag, Sergeant Grant details several men to dig a shallow ditch in the sand, just deep enough to cover Hancock. It's not a fitting final resting place, but it'll have to do for now. If I'm not careful, there will be more wasted lives. Now, this is where you're picking your mindset. Are you going to be cautious? So each of these reference a mindset. But if you're really going to role play, try to be there. I would pick based on the text and not, oh, I want that +2 so I can have this action. If I'm not careful, there will be more wasted lives. I like that one. I know I can't save everyone, but if Hancock had stayed with the squad, he might be alive. Now, what does that represent, actually? Doctrine. He did right. That wasn't enough. I am curious what these are supposed to represent. If only we'd attack together. I don't know. I mean, I'm very tempted to be cautious, but I like this because there's a reason the Army has doctrine and things. If we enforce proper action, this I think will come as a side effect. So I'm actually going to go for a little judgmental, but we have to be. Soldiers are going to be alive and pick. If Hancock had stayed with this squad, he might be alive. Hancock tried to be a hero, a lone hero. He tried to do basically a game, right? Run up the beach, be super cool, poor bastard. But an army can't depend solely on individual efforts, not if it wants to win wars. Remember, in this game, you run a platoon, you run an organization. This is not single superheroes or single squaddies like XCOM. You're running a company, or a platoon in this case. You have to run it with intelligence and organization, unlike what I did, my God. Okay. Doctrine advances. Nearby, the men of First Squad crouch in the dark as artillery thunders in the distance. They too are thinking about Hancock. They too are trying to figure it out. Hell of a thing, Sergeant Grant says softly. It hits hard, you know. And the younger men will take it even harder. I hope I can help them. There will be much more of this. Let's go briefly in combat fatigue and then we'll call up for this battle. Okay, now I'm just going to, I can do this a little more quickly. I think we'll have a graphic here. So combat fatigue is basically what it sounds like, except it's fatigue to your spirit and to your psyche. So soldiers who first get exposed to combat, you may remember in Band of Brothers, a guy who goes blind, not physically, but psychologically. He's just so stressed. That's a combat stress reaction. It's kind of like PTSD, but on the battlefield. Due to combat fatigue, they're accumulating. When you're first exposed to combat, you take a lot of it. Then you get experience, you start to understand the strange, weird world you're in, and you don't take as much, and you seem to be fine. You fight rather effectively, and your troops will too. They're going to be green and panicked here often in these early battles. Well, luckily they're fighting the Vichy, but later they'll know how to handle it, and they'll seem to be fine. But actually, this study's shown, I looked at a 1946 study on this, that's well referenced apparently. I don't claim to be an expert, I try to read responsibly. They're constantly acquiring fatigue underneath. It's low-level, stress in a sense. And everybody breaks eventually, what the evidence is. So long enough of this low-level combat fatigue, being exposed to death, like we just were, being exposed to stressful situations, being deprived of sleep, over time you will get to the point where you start manifesting the same things, like that blindness, like that sitting there uncontrollably weeping. The book, What It's Like to Go to War, said, early on they say, oh, I'm going to take Berlin in the beginning. Then they say, well, I may not take Berlin, but I'm going to do pretty well here. And then they start saying, oh, people get killed. Maybe I won't get killed, but maybe my friends will. And then this is really, in some sense, an accumulation of combat stress you're hearing. And they start saying, I got to be careful. I might get it. And then they start saying, there's a bullet out there, and it's only a matter of time. They're becoming fatalists. Probably somewhat realistic, but they're starting to lose hope. And then they've got enough combat fatigue, they'll actually start to do sometimes strange things like they did early on. Like they'll sit, these are real things, like sit there in the middle of battle, upright, just sitting there. And you're like, what the hell are you doing, Johnson? And say, look, there's a bullet out there. It doesn't matter what I do. I might as well get it over with. So that's a combat stress reaction. The game will model that as the troops get later in the war and your leaders, they'll get more and more stressed. You'll have to manage them. Maybe some R&R, which is another interesting topic, rest and recuperation. Tricky, interesting thing to do. It takes them off. You're being able to use them in the next battle, but helps them. But you can only slow it so much. Again, we're trying to be credible about this. All right, so let's just finish up here. Deep voice abruptly bellows from the dark. Hold your fire, officer coming through. You turn to see Captain Lamb, that's my captain, striding towards you, silhouetted against the dark by flashes of artillery fire. Walking before him is a wet, sand-covered, and utterly weaponless Private Roberts. Oh yes, I remember him. Early on in the ship with Hancock. The enlisted man's eyes are wide and fearful as the captain prods him forward. I believe this is one of ours? Captain Lamb asks you pointedly. Yes, sir, he's Roberts. He's part of the platoon. Figured I'd be writing his mother. Yes, sir, he's Roberts. I'm not going to mess around right now. Part of the platoon. I'm tempted to ask if you need him back, Captain Lamb says. All my runners went in this drink when we hit a reef, and I haven't seen a one of them yet. Of course I need him. A little mud. I see, he wants him as a runner. So I could help the men, attention, right? I could help the captain. On the other hand, I kind of need it for my squad, but I think I should help the captain. He may have lost a weapon, but he's here. I'd rather he drove a truck. I mean, just look at him. Oh, he's scared. Maybe, I wonder if he ran from battle. Do we shoot cowards? He may have lost his weapon, but he's here. True, but not convincing, Captain Lamb notes. Roberts gives a little gulp, and the captain fixes him with the weighty gaze of a disappointed father. I want to hear what he's got to say for himself. Sergeant Grant cocks a skeptical glance at the bedraggled private. Nearby, Morris and Patterson lean in to listen. On the beach, a new line of Higgins boats slowly gropes its way toward shore. The place where Hancock's body lies, Robert's friend, just a few steps away. Well, I've gone with the truth point, so I'm going to just go for that. Roberts? Now, see, that would be a lie. Hancock, well, no, that's not a lie. Hancock just died already tried taking his gun. Hancock is dead. All squads gain 5 experience. Now, remember, I said I wanted to go for doctrine, right? Don't get ahead. I'm gonna focus on experience and my men become better, not just Nice morale. Come on, I want us to be a well-disciplined unit. All squads gain 5 experience. Private Roberts stares at your eyes, blinking in the gray dawn light. No, he looks to Sergeant Grant. Grant tenders over a small shake of his head. Roberts shoots a glance at Morris and Patterson, but there's nothing funny to be said. At last, Robert turns back to you. Something shifts behind his eyes as he stuffs down a rising anger. The loss of his friend. I understand. Thanks for telling me. Thank you. I thought you'd be yelling at me. You seem too calm about this. If you're too broken up, grief does strange things to men. Sure. Other men, Lieutenant, Robert replies, like the ones I'm going to go after. Ah, so he's handling it with anger. Not a bad way to cope. I'm not sure I want Roberts in the platoon right now. Oh, that'd be brutal. Find a rifle, Private. Captain, Roberts shouldn't be here. Now, you notice I'm not rereading the special stuff. I want to play like I am there. Captain Roberts shouldn't be here right now. Captain, I don't think I want Roberts with a rifle. Roberts, you unlucky and clumsy soldier, I see. So I'd agree. Find a rifle, Private. I like that. Private Robert gives a nod and rejoins first squad. Loyalty +1. Morris finds a weapon, and Roberts inspects it with a steady eye. Well, his combat stress reaction may have been to take it seriously. Lieutenant Colonel Moore approaches, kicking up sand as he goes. This is the transition to the next scenario. He heads right for Captain Lamb. Captain, I require this platoon. Cutting off Lamb's startled reply, he turns to you. Lieutenant, I know you've been wanting to catch your breath, but I need you and your men back on your feet. You've got one of the few units on this beach that made it ashore intact. Good. You must have had one hell of a coxswain. Let me tell you, I want him promoted. I'm glad I didn't mess with the coxswain too much. He glances over his shoulder at the dark beach where the next wave is navigating the approach. Roberts extracts his flashlight, no doubt to examine his new rifle. But Morris halts the man before the other private can flick it on. Oh yeah, flashlight, not a good idea. Death is ready. We gotta be practical. Now when I give you the order fight, you did just that, Lieutenant Colonel notes, having thankfully missed the little exchange between privates. And you got things done in a neat trice. We all need more of that now. There's a group of German officers, old nags from the last war, they put back in harness on an armistice commission. This is all true. That bullies the French around. Secure them from the Hotel Miramar in Fadala before they can run off. See if I can find that right now. This is something I keep at my desk just to connect. I got this off eBay. This is the hotel. I don't know if you can see it in the dark here. Forgive me if not. There we go. Okay. I think you can see it. And it happened, you know. There's a group of German soldiers, old nags from the last war, they put back in a harness. I read that. Secure them from the Hotel Miramar in Fadala before they can run off into the desert on us. You gotta move quick. Company A will be there to hold your hand when the French finally wake up. Understand? So this is going to be probably a different kind of mission. The scenario designers writers worked really hard to make each scenario really kind of different in kind. You have line assaults, beach landings, off-map things like going to Rome, like they did when they're not fighting, all kinds of things. Salute. Oh, I've learned not to do that. Yes, sir. That's what we trained for, sir. I think A Company is going to be lonely. Yes, sir. Good. Get going, Lieutenant Colonel Moore says. A crack of wood heralds yet another boat broaching upon a reef. Lieutenant Colonel Moore motions for Lamb to follow as he stalks away, yelling and cursing at the waterlogged arrivals. Captain Lamb catches your eye. You know what to do, Captain Lamb calls out over the din. The rest of Nickel Company will be along. Then he turns and follows Lieutenant Colonel back towards the chaos along the shore. Okay, so that's it. You would go to the next scenario. I played it standalone. I think you've gotten some sense here. It was a very narrative-heavy scenario. Many will be tactically heavy. In fact, the next one I'm going to play is going to be tactically heavy. But I wanted to make clear to you that this is a different kind of game, I hope experience, that is really trying to immerse you in what it was like for the men and for the leaders, rather than just play, I hope, a compelling tactical game. We've gotten good feedback on the tactical, but we wanted both. We wanted you to lead on the battlefield and off. Now, I'm going to take a little break. And I'll be back in a moment. You can just keep watching, and we'll go to the next one, and we'll play a very tactically oriented one. I hope you're intrigued at the least.